This little tutorial is about just a little one way of creating a ball and stick chemistry model, something like this. The model itself is really simple. Just consists of spheres and cylinders. But I wanted to create this model using constraints so that these spheres and cylinders can be placed in a variety of positions without losing their form. So the two constraints that I want to use are found in the animation tool set. If I look under constraint, here's the whole list of constraints, and the ones that I'm going to be using are point and aim constraints. So let me just show you what those are all about. I'll start by creating a NURB sphere. Of course, you could do this with polygons. And I'm just going to hit the 4 key to go into wireframe mode, just to start out with. So I have a sphere, and I'm going to put a circle inside it. Some manageable size. Okay, and then I'm going to just duplicate these and move them off to the side. Okay, so because I created them both at the origin, of course, the circle ends up, right in the center of the sphere. But I want to make sure that it stays there by using a constraint. So I'll just move it off to the side for now. And the point constraint just means that one object, the pivot point of one object is always going to be touching the pivot point of another. So in this case, I want to affix this circle inside this sphere and make sure that it's always centered. So, I can do that by, parenting or grouping or, a couple of other different ways, but I've chosen to do that with constraints. So the way that the constraint works is you choose the driver object first, which is the constraining object, and then you shift and select the driven object or the constrained object, and then you just go into constrain point. Within the options of the point constraint, you have this maintain offset, and if that were checked, this would touch the pivot, but it would be offset by whatever amount I have it set up now. That's not what I want to do. I want to keep the maintain offset turned off so that when I apply this constraint, you can see it pops right to the center. Now if I select the sphere, see how the circle highlights in purple, and I can just move this around and the circle is going to always move with it. So that's the first step. So I'll do the same thing with this circle and sphere. I'm sorry, pick the driver first, the driven second, and then just click on apply. So now the circle is going to stay with that one. The second option then is going to be an aim constraint. And what the aim constraint does is it causes one of the local axes of an object to always point towards the pivot point of another object. So in this case, the x-axis is aligning with the normal of the circle. The circle is aligned here, perpendicular to the x-axis. So I want to aim the x-axis at this circle. So I'll select the driver first. I'll shift select the driven, and I'll go into my constraints, and I'm going to look at my aim constraints. And here we want to deal with what's called the aim vector, and it's reading across its x, y, and z. And I can have multiple or a blend of the different vectors, but in this case I'm just going to put a 1 there for the x-axis. So the x-axis is going to aim towards the driver object. So I'll go ahead and add that. Now it doesn't look like anything happened, but now when I select this sphere, the sphere controls the position of this circle, and the position of this circle controls the orientation of this circle. So when I move them, you can see how that secondary circle is always going to be aiming here, and that's going to be important for the next step. But before I take the next step, I'm just going to do this same thing over again. I'll select this as my driver, I'll shift select this as my driven, and I'll go ahead and constrain and aim. I'll leave the settings where they were. So now they're aiming at each other, and every time I move this, you can see that those two circles will change their rotational orientation so that they're always lined up with each other. So then the next step is going to be to loft these together. So I'll just shift and select, and then just go to my surfaces tool set here. Under surfaces, I'll just click on loft, and there's my stick. Let's just show this in shaded mode. And so the nice thing about this is that anytime I move the sphere, the circle moves with it, and as the circle moves, it maintains its aim orientation towards its driver object, and I can place this anywhere I want, and the and the stick here is always going to be centered. It's always going to find the center of that sphere. So if I want to make additional ones, all I really need to do is select one of these circles, one of these spheres, and duplicate, move that off to the side. When I duplicate it, the constraints don't come along with it, so I'll just take this and duplicate it again, and what I'm going to want is two circles inside this sphere. So I'm just going to leave it right here for now, and I'm going to set up the aim constraints. So I'll select this as the driver and this as the driven, and just go to animation, constrain, aim, and that pops over so that it's aiming there, and I'll do the same thing here. Select this as the driver, this is the driven, constrain, aim, so that works. And then I'll select the sphere as the driver, the circle as the driven, and constrain point. And I'll do the same thing here, the sphere as the driver, the circle as the driven, and constrain point, and that's going to pop right in there. And then I can just go ahead and loft this again. So I'll select one circle here, I'll select the other circle here, and in my surfaces tool set, surfaces, loft. Now I have three chemicals. These are constrained right to the center of each one of those, each one of these. So when I move this around, okay. So my disclaimer here is I know nothing about chemistry, and I know nothing about what these models are supposed to look like. But I do know that if you want to represent something like this, and you want to be able to show all those spheres, you can place these anywhere that you want. I don't know if the length of these sticks is of any importance whatsoever, but because the construction history is live, wherever I place these spheres, those sticks are always going to stretch to accommodate those positions. So that's essentially my solution to creating the ball and stick model. You can get a little bit more complex if you want to have like a double bond. You can take the two circles and group them together with the pivot in the center, and then you can just go ahead and constrain those in the exact same way.